Hi, it's Erin of Waterwoman Knits, and today I thought I would just share my knits, and then I have a series of clips that I did in the woods to give you some therapy time among trees. For me, it is probably the most therapeutic thing that I do is walking in the woods and just I feel the least alone, paradoxically, when I'm in the woods. And I have never been in a wooded area where I feel unsafe before. I Even when I lived in a larger city, um, yeah, I just always feel supported when I'm in a natural environment such as that. So behind me is a beautiful begonia that I've had for 4 years. Um, and it's just sprouted from a one leaf that a woman who owned this amazing plant at an Airbnb that I stayed at 4 years ago. She just gave me a leaf, and it has just been amazing for 4 years. The leaves are really, they almost look unreal when the light shines through them, as if, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but, and just in case anyone's interested, it's called a wild pony begonia. I don't know anything about begonias. I just happen to love this plant. um, okay, so I will start with an old project that I dug up. I'm gonna have like a few, I have nothing complete. I have a lot of whips, and one project that I have, I found as I was doing a major cleaning when my room had to be repainted and moved all the furniture around. And it's so refreshing to just like start in a new space, even if it's not new, to just kind of like clean everything out, organize stuff. So now I know where all my stash is, in tubs in my closet. I have one closet where I keep all my clothes and my yarn. So far, it hasn't exceeded the closet. So I feel like I'm doing good. Um, oh, except, you know, I mentioned that I have a allergy to alpaca that I recently learned as I was working with alpaca. And so I tried to mail, it was about 20 balls of yarn that was some blend of alpaca, not 100%. And I tried to mail it to my cousin in Canada. Now, I am going to try a second time because I just really have trouble believing this was correct, but it may be. When I tried to ship this box that can't weigh that much, I never saw the final weight on it, because 20 balls of yarn, it's, yeah, it's not super heavy, but it has some weight to it, and it's a box, like, good foot by foot or something. And as we were processing the customs form and everything, I know that there are duties and fees on the other side that the receiver may be expected to have to pay. And so I knew I was kind of expecting, like, in the ballpark of maybe $100. The amount that the postal clerk said was it was over $1,000 of duties and fee taxes that they would have to pay. So I nixed that immediately, and I just have the box sitting here. And I'm going to try it at a different post office just to make 100% sure, because in all my research I could do online, when I looked into it, it appears that it should only be somewhere in the $100 to $200 range. I am not sure, but at any rate, it just means I need to wait until times are better for travel from Canada to see if my cousin will be able to visit at some point and I can give it to her in person. Okay, anyway, side tangent. Okay, this shawl is an Andrea Mowry shawl that I found. It's one of these projects where I'm sure if you are used to having many unfinished projects, you know the deal. Suddenly one day you find some box or some basket that you just had completely forgotten about for a year and a half or 2 years, and you realize there's a half-finished shawl in it. This is called the Attune shawl, and I had made one before that I gifted to someone, and I wanted to make one, a huge one for myself. So half of it is brioche, and the other half is fisherman's, I think it's called half fisherman's rib. And what I love about this, excuse the like untucked in little knots on this side, but on the back side, it looks just as beautiful, if not more, depending on what you can use, any yarn. Now, and then so you get to the bottom of doing, it's very customizable. You can make this as long as you want, this spine of the shawl, and it's asymmetrical. So like one side is actually increasing faster than the other, than the brioche side. So it ends up being this kind of, I don't even know what shape that would be. It's, so anyway, it's just, I love that it's not your standard triangular shawl shape. And after you get down to the bottom of the brioche section, you do a panel that is just garter ridges of whatever your two colors that you have, or you can switch out colors. It's just completely customizable. So I'm really excited to just get back working on this. It's a very lightweight yarn, and I love just something that doesn't hurt my hands so much sometimes. That's why I switch projects so much. It's just my hands are overdone with my job typing full-time. Now, these yarns, in case anyone's interested, this is what I'm making the shawl out of. The color changes are just, I love. And this is another thing, it's another skein of the same yarn. And at the moment, I can't remember what the yarn is, but I do know if you go to the Hobby site, I'm still not clear if they're pronounced Hobby or Hobby, but it's in Denmark. It's called Hobbii. You go to their site, and I had gotten these years ago from a super sale that they had on these, and it's an incredible amount of yardage, as you can tell. Like, I have made actually 3 cowls and a shawl out of this, just this one. And so I think I'm going to blend these two as the garter rows at the bottom. Anyway, they're just really fun to play with. And what it is it's, I don't normally like working with acrylic, but this is a wool blend with a little bit of acrylic to make it cost effective. And so I love the color ranges that they have. And I'm glad that I found these in a box. Now, the next thing is that I have been really happy to try to make a Nordiska sweater for myself from Caitlin Hunter's pattern, which she has in her pattern. It's dark motif on a off-white sweater. Instead, I'm making mine the reverse because I'm working with what yarns I have. This is like the best fitting and favorite sweater I've ever made. And the more I make garments, the more I am learning how to modify them for my own body, which is very empowering since most fast fashion rarely fits. Even when I go to thrift stores, I can rarely find something because everybody's so different. And why not just treat our bodies well? Like I'm coming to this very, very late in life. I always have had not the best relationship with my physical being in general. And this has been just very healing, I think, to be able to make my own clothes as a goal. Almost all my things that I may have knit, I have given away. So I'm just this year starting to make myself some garments. So this is the sleeve, and I modified this to put a seed stitch edging instead of rib. And shout out to Diane in my local knitting group, because she showed me that this is how she binds off all of her sweaters. And I actually, now that I saw it, I'm going to make every single one this way instead of ribbing, because to me it looks finished better. And then this is the base, and I bound off in what is that called? An I-cord bind off, a 3-stitch I-cord bind off. And now this kind of flares, and I don't mind because it's almost like having a split hem at the base of a sweater, where for all of us who have hips, it is beneficial to have flaring at the base. But the way that the garment has such a lovely, like, I'm not going to put it on right now because it has a half part finished sleeve and it won't really go well over this collared thing I'm wearing. But I love the detail of the cabled raglan sleeves, and I also modified by adding a few more stitches at the base of the armhole, just for wider, when you have wider arms. I don't know, you can modify anything is what I'm learning. I've always been just like, stick by the patterns, whatever it says, and now I'm just trying to modify. Sometimes what I've been doing, I think I made 3 sweaters so far, and some fit me better. I mean, this past year, and some fit me better than others. And so I'm learning what works. And I think one thing is that depending on your bust size and everything, you can start at the shoulders at a different, like I have fairly narrow shoulders. So you can start at a different size point at that, if it's a top-down sweater, and then you can actually increase to the, do the rest of the stitch counts to the next garment size in the pattern. Of course, you have to account for yarn and all that, but I'm just saying it's now that I'm giving myself the permission, I guess. I never really knew, because I didn't grow up sewing, so I don't really. It's been such a learning curve to just learn about garment construction, period. But now that I'm making changes to patterns, it's like the more comfortable I get with it. I also, so yeah, I made part of this broader, and then I did the middle part broader for the chest, and then I did some decreases that I don't think you can really see them on here, but anyway, decreased it to the waist border part. This, I can see why she called this Nordiska. It's a very Norwegian type pattern, I believe. And I made up the part and the pattern of these sleeves. I think it goes to about, well, anyway, I made up to make it longer, make the motif longer, because I wanted the sleeves. The pattern calls for, what is that called? Where you, like, not a clown sleeve, but what is that called? Where it kind of like poofs, and then it only goes up like 3/4, like above your wrist. Anyway, I didn't want that. I want long sleeves and that are not cinched in. So I basically made one decrease in the sleeve at this point, and then the rest is just flat. And this wool, by the way, is also from Hobbii, Hobbii. So far, I have found no difficulty with tariffs yet. I don't know why, but they still will do free shipping. They have great deals. And I find many of their products very good to work with. So this wool I have made a baby blanket out of. I have not washed this, but you can just see how, like, it's almost like it looks as if it's been washed. It's just so even. Only the red is from Hobbii, but it's called Friends wool. It's 100% wool. And for some reason, it's how it's spun or something, but it's affordable. It's like as affordable as acrylic yarns are in the US. And I just love it. It's already fairly soft and it hasn't been washed. And it's not super wash. It's like 100% wool. And it comes in like a sport to DK weight on the ball band, but I have seen people make worsted weight sweaters out of it, because once you do wash it, it sort of blooms a bit, and it can fit kind of like a range. The gauges are kind of like, you can make it blend into a lot of different patterns. I wanted to mention one thing, is that because this is constructed from until you get to, wait, no, what was I thinking? Okay, yeah, until you join the V portion, you're doing it like you're making like a C where it's not in the round and it's flat. So about this first portion before it's joined at the V is all done flat. And I learned a trick, because every time I do that, my purl side is always larger than my knit side of stockinette, slightly larger. And then once you join in the round, you're doing only knit stitches. So what I did with this to keep the evenness of the stitches was a trick I saw where I saw somebody put a great video on it, and if I can find it, I'll link it. But where you put one needle size smaller when you're knitting on the purl side, and that way, so like I think I had like a size 4, and then I would use a size 3 every time I would be purling, and a size 4 when you're knitting, and it helps even out so you don't have like these jaggedy rows where they're uneven, and that way it makes it the same gauge exactly as, and the same smoothness as the remainder of the garment that is knit in the round. Okay, so those are things that I learned with that lovely Nordiska. I've been wanting to make that pattern for years, and I finally, it's like, I have the wool, why don't I do it? I am also making the Rebel cardigan by, who is it by? Anka Strick. I'm not sure. I know you can find this, and I've what is her, I'm not sure what her actual name is, but her business is Ankastrik. Anyway, this is an interesting construction that I've not made, but it's very classic European construction where you start knitting these bands that go out for the well, I mean, this is something that is unique to this cardigan, but I chose it for this exact reason so that you don't have to sew on and pick up an entire button band at the end. So it has this very thick button band. You just start at the back of the neck and it's going down the entire garment. And that way, and then you create this sort of saddle, I think it's called a saddle construction possibly. But so this is the back side of the neck, and then you make these raglan decreases and then form into the sleeve. Now, I think this will hopefully even out a bit the stitching once I wash it. This is BFL Blueface Leicester wool, which I absolutely love, but I just noticed that for whatever reason, like I've rarely seen this unevenness in the stitching when I do 1x1 rib. So I'm not sure exactly what the qualities of this wool. It's not superwash, but it has a little bit of that plasticky feel. Maybe it's just the smoothness of the wool. And actually this wool was Cascade and from the Cascade company on a very, very steep sale. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but it's the only yarn that I've worked with. I've worked with many other Cascade products. It's the only wool that I've worked with where after I finish working on this a bit, I look down and my hands are blue. So it'll be really interesting. Once I wash this, I think it'll wash out quite a bit of the color, I'm assuming. So perhaps that's why it feels different, is that maybe it was milled, like when you get yarn on a cone and it hasn't been complete, the oil hasn't been, spinning oil hasn't been washed out. At any rate, it's definitely leaching color, and which I'm sure will be fine because it's such a brilliant blue to begin with. It doesn't, it won't matter. But anyway, so the front, I can't wait till I have this washed, and then this is the inside of it. But you can see how the front panels will come down, and it should be nice and big for just to throw on as a cardigan. That's Rebel, REBEL, and you can make it as long as you want. You can she tells you how to make increases if you want it to be more an A-frame. Is that called A-frame? Where it flares out at the bottom. And so you can modify it for yourself. Now I'm still working on making, this is my 4th bag that I'm working on out of this wool from Premier Yarns that is 100% cotton. And I just got a bunch, this is the acquisition part. I got several different colors because I'm trying to, this is affordable yarn, and I am trying to set a goal that by next April, I will be able to sell a bunch of bags. I just thought I would share some of the colors because they're just so awesome. So yeah, they're just so bright, and I'm gonna blend a bunch of different colors, like have the base of the bag be maybe a solid on some of them, and it's just all this self striping with a few solids. It should be. I want it to be eye popping and just have a whole rack of these to sell. So that my goal is to have enough for the certificate that I'm aiming for to do nature and forest therapy guiding, so that I can learn more techniques with that. And I do have a little self-published, just plug this, a self-published book of nature exercises that I did a decade ago, which is still on Amazon. And it's not that I love Amazon by any means, but it was the only way that I could self-publish for free. So I had, compiled a bunch of exercises that anyone can do, almost any age. It's called naturography, Naturography. And at the time when I made it, I did not know that somebody else had a business called Naturography who is a photographer. And my purpose in coming up, I thought I was just creating this word until I Googled and realized, oh my gosh, if there was if my book was so successful, I would be in legal doo-doo with this person. But fortunately, my book is not successful as far as sales. But anyway, my point is that it lists a lot of activities. I think I would like to work on making them more practicable with groups of people, and then incorporate that, like develop my own way of using the curriculum from the Association for Nature and Forest Therapy Guides, and somehow come with a blend of that. In my mind, what I was meaning by naturography is writing and nature connection, the combination. So that's the graphy, is the writing. That's literally what that means. So I think that's all that I have to share in the knitting realm. And believe it or not, I'm coming up on the 10-year anniversary of my biggest life achievement. It's not really. I think I've had other life achievements, but it's something I never thought I would do, which was complete the Portland Marathon, or any marathon. I did that almost exactly a decade ago. I walked, I trained for months, and with a team. The only way I could get my body to do something like that was, even though I was an avid distance walker, but it's another thing to do it in a crowd of 14,000 people. So the way that I did it was to participate with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to raise funds for cancer research while training. So you train with a bunch of people who are all doing something for a cause that is bigger than themselves. So I don't consider it my life's greatest achievement, but I consider it the biggest group effort I've been a part of that was very, very fulfilling in terms of being a part of a team. Almost everything I do in life is solo, where I'm constantly competing against myself. Knitting, I was a musician in my early years, very, spending hours a day on the piano, doing long walks. I used to walk everywhere to commute that I've ever lived. until I started working from home, which clearly I still walk to where I work, but it's a lot shorter commute. And anyway, so and then writing is my other thing that I focus on in life, and those are all very solo activities where they require like self-drive kind of thing and competing against oneself. And I appreciated so much about that team is they call it team in training. I'm not sure how it will morph the organization now that they've changed the name to United Blood Cancer, UBC, to encompass both leukemias and lymphomas. But if they still have team in training, the group going, I can't recommend it enough. They have coaches that are very helpful for both walkers and runners. I have been out of the keeping up on, different endurance events for at least 5 years now. But it's just something that if you're ever on the fence about doing it, I really recommend the experience. The team met up at different parks in the city, Seattle being the nearest city to me. And we would meet at a different park each weekend. So you're seeing different environments, training in different environments, which was fabulous. And the people, the walkers and the runners, you're all there at the same start time, and you all are doing a certain number of miles. And then you just are waiting at the end for everybody to close out. And then what was so great is that each week we would hear from what they called an honored teammate. So it was usually a cancer patient that was either of a relative participating in the team, or it may not be. It may be just somebody that someone knows as a family connection or something like that. And then we hear their story at the beginning of every training. So I was able to actually raise a total of $10,000 toward research. And now this is 10 years ago. So I'm just very proud that I was able to do something small to just pay that forward. And yeah, I did it in honor of my child. I walked the whole thing with her name on my jersey, and it was just such a great moment in my life. And one thing I learned, in case you're interested in late life getting into marathons, whether you run or walk, fascinatingly, the biggest percentage of people that complete marathons are age 39, and the number 2 age is 49. I did it at 49. So there's something psychologically about like, ooh, I'm going to be 50 next year. I'm going to be 40 next year. this is my last chance to like prove something. And I did it less to prove something, but more to participate in the team part of it and then raise the funds. So, yeah. What else? Okay, so one thing I wanted to just touch on briefly, and I'm going to write about this in my blog with some links, but I just want to give any autistic person out there a big hug, because I am a late diagnosed autistic person, and if it had been available to me, if supports and diagnosis and information had been available to me as a child, I'm not sure how my life would be different, but I imagine I would have processed, how do I say it? Like my self-awareness and self-understanding would have been miles ahead as I grew, instead of it being like something is wrong with me all the time and I feel horrible about myself. And so it's been quite liberating to be a late life diagnosed. And with all the rhetoric that is out there right now, I just really feel for people who are in that same boat. Apparently, the latest data that I could find suggests that there's about 1 in 40 adults in America who are late diagnosed. And it's now ranked as like level 1 to level 3, where I believe it's level 1 is the lowest support needs. So that's the category that I fit into. But it has been very helpful to me to both find a support group of other neurodiverse people, as well as to just understand how it manifests in my life as relatively high functioning as I am. I just thought I would mention briefly, and then I will write and give some resources in my blog. I am become aware more over time that knitting is definitely a form of stimming for me, which means self-stimming behaviors are part of the autistic brain, sort of releasing energy. You can, the brain differences is how I understand it, mean that you can have difficulty with like verbal expression. As you notice, I often find it difficult to have kind of word finding. I pause and I stutter a little bit, whereas when I write, it's very fluent communication. So my entire life, I have an English degree. As a child, I used to just write voluminously. I've written maybe 4 blogs over my life, when blogs were a thing more. And just that has always been the easier form and more fluid form of communication for me to express myself in general. That is a feature of many autistic brains, and it has to do with the part of the brain that is responsible for verbal communication. And another way that it expresses in my life is definitely I feel that I have an issue not in writing. I can detect a written scam, like a text or, scam emails, that kind of thing. Anything where I'm receiving writing, I can detect a scam a mile away. But in person, I've had challenges over the course of my life with understanding and an awareness of when people are taking advantage of me. So that's like a blind spot for me, which I now attribute to being autistic. And having high empathy is also a feature of many autistic people, even though because of communication difficulties, sometimes that doesn't come across. And, many people can speak in a monotone. There's all sorts of different ways of expression. It can express itself, the brain differences. Most autistic people, adults, have some extra heightened sensory feature. So like some people have a very acute sense of smell, for example. I do not. I would say the fact that I have transcribed human voice for 30 years in a job that I don't think many people could sustain as long as I have. Clearly my hearing, auditory, is like one of my super senses, and which is why if I go into public environments or even family gatherings, as much as I love my family, I'm often, because so in other words, I've translated my sensory, extrasensory, heightened sensory experience that can be very overstimulating in groups, and used it in a niche job that allows me to just 100% focus on that heightened ability. So for example, I can tease out, if I'm hearing three people have conversations simultaneously, my brain can literally tease out what all three threads that are simultaneously happening, just because I've trained my brain so much to transcribe like group forums and that kind of thing. So I just want to really just send out love and hugs to anyone who's been on the receiving end of some strong emotions around what has been publicly said about autistic people over the past few months, and the misunderstandings, the inaccurate data, blaming pregnant women for taking Tylenol for a high fever in pregnancy. I will post some other resources that look at the data and break it down in a broader picture, so that hopefully it can be a little bit to combat the misinformation that is out there. And yeah, there's still a lot of people that equate autism with extreme behavioral challenges. And in the most extreme cases, that can be true. But right now, because there are many people my age, 50s, 60s, 70s, who are being late diagnosed, since it wasn't even available to especially women until the 1990s, the very earliest. It's been playing catch up, and so the numbers of people that have lived their whole lives not knowing this about themselves, it allows an opening. The more information we get, we know there's a genetic component. That's one causal proven link, but it's not 100% clear all the causes, and this is something that has been studied over decades. But specifically for women my age, there are many people that are now being late life diagnosed, and I just am with you. I see you. I believe in you. And yeah, it just hurt my heart what happened this past week, and that's all I wanted to say about that. Yeah, so those of us who have there's probably, I would imagine there are many in the knitting community for whom knitting, whether you're autistic or not, where the solace that the physical repetitive motion of knitting brings you is akin to regulating yourself as an autistic person. So regardless of whether you are or you're not, or you don't even want to consider that diagnosis, it's been very helpful to me to see the strengths that I think I have had in my life, and as well as the challenges. So, yeah, I will just say adios, and I will leave you with my glimpses of walking among the trees and just wishing for you moments that are away from all the voices yelling at each other, shouting at each other. I feel like when anyone scrolls their phone, that's what we have. And it can be challenging to discern what are actual actions in the world that can directly impact us versus that we might want to stay aware of happening in the world versus teams shouting back and forth at each other, and not necessarily actions being taken. So I wish everybody well, and I hope that you can find little moments in whatever makes you happy, whether it's walking in the woods, connecting in some way to the natural world, or doing something creative, whatever that is for you. So take care. Hello, this is Erin, and I am wishing everyone after equinox, fall equinox blessing. I have been taking my own advice and walking in glorious woods most days after work, and it has made all the difference in my mental health struggles over the past month. I just wanted to share that I don't know if when you were a kid you did this, but with maple trees, I think they're called cascaras, the wing seeds. There's this giant maple that I found nearby, and it dropped all of these in the fall as the fall approaches. And it just brought back a childhood memory of the joy of creating little helicopters everywhere. So I thought I would share that. And I took a few sweet videos of these woods that are new to me, which is always great, since even after all the dryness of summer, I can't believe this patch of very green moss is still got enough moisture. We've had like 2 rains in the past few months that I can remember, so I'm surprised. That is just really cool. Moss makes me happy.